Okay, my friends, get ready. This is a Fair Use Act. I'm not stealing anything. I am commenting on for transformational information. And this is going to be as transformational as any information ever has been. Now, listen to what they have to say. This is today's show. And this is today on YouTube. And I'm going to just play it. You listen to what they say. And then we're going to have a deep dive into what I say is the construction materials and techniques.
This morning, a new discovery inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Behind these gigantic chevrons above the main entrance, for the first time, a look inside, a precise analysis, a real characterization of the North Face corridor.
This discovery, in my opinion, is the most important discovery on the 21st century.
The towering structure has for centuries kept secrets out of reach of scientists and archaeologists. And now, for the first time, images showing a vaulted ceiling, a corridor measuring 30 feet with 5 chambers designed to release pressure.
This corridor, it's protecting or reducing the pressure on something beneath it. It might be chamber, might be something else. Very soon we can figure out what is the main issue of this corridor.
Inside the Great Pyramid, the possible tombs, the unknown artifacts, even the ancient construction techniques, it's all fascinated the world for the last 4,500 years.
It's wonderful that we keep getting new developments and learn new things.
Back in 2016, a cavity behind the North Face was first discovered. Scientists believed it was horizontal, and now they know it is, with perhaps a small upward slope. After 7 years of exhaustive investigation, a true picture of what it looks like. Launched back in 2015, Scan Pyramids set out to penetrate the walls of this ancient pyramid without disrupting them. No drilling required, no excavations. Using advanced cosmic ray scans in the form of muons, scientists can peer behind the thick limestone walls with technology far more powerful than any X-ray. But this morning, the questions remain. What else is behind the North Face? What's below that corridor? What is it hiding?
So many more questions, of course, but as always with these big discoveries, we want to know what was next to that, what was under that, what else is to come. What's so incredible, though, you guys, is that as technology advances, the discoveries become more frequent, the discoveries become bigger, but something like this, for example, they didn't have to do any digging, they didn't have to do any excavating. It was all done without removing one single stone from the...
Let me tell you something. All of this stuff I have done, I didn't hardly pick up a shovel. All of my mud fossils, which are completely validated now, and as I will show you, point to everything about the pyramids and about what they might be made of and how they might have been constructed. And I didn't even lift a shovel. And I'm going to show you, and it's going to be very, very, very difficult for any of these experts to dispute what I have to say. And I would love to engage. I've been trying to engage for 10 years, 12 years. And because I am so off the page, I cannot get on the stage. I'm so far out of the game that they think I'm just crazy. But when I show you what I show you, and if they dismiss that, then you decide who is crazy. Right. Everybody knows the story of Noah's flood or the Great Flood, or if you are familiar with Immanuel Velikovsky, you know this entire story of how the flood happened and why it was a hot, boiling water flood. Completely saturated the whole earth, caused the mud fossils, which are, this is one right here, this is a fingertip. It's 3 feet long from here to here. It's completely perfect. The fingernail actually is here. It's a little bit eroded, not much at all. This is the pad that goes to your next bone so that it rocks against there and doesn't scrape. Those are the blood vessels. Now, this right here broke right off where the fingernail is. And it did because I smashed it with a hammer. A big, pretty good sized hammer. Boom. And it just popped right off. It's just because it's skin. And not only that, it has the fingerprints on there. Now, this, I had to go down inside to get DNA out of there, because, drill deep inside. I don't scrape it from the surface. This is what annoys me with all the people that talk about that kind of stuff. I don't scrape it from the surface. I take it deep down inside. And let me just show you something. Here's what fingerprints are like inside of fingers. It is saturated with blood. It's literally, I have actual blood coming out of them. Now these are the fingerprints. Where was it? Right here. It's down here somewhere. Oh, there it is. All right, this is the fingerprints from that gigantic fingertip. These are sweat pores. My thumb is the size of one fingerprint ridge. You see these little sweat pores? There they are right there. Now, I went down, because there's nothing here for blood. You can't get any blood out of that. So I went down inside, got the blood, and of course sent it off and had it tested. And it was human. And so was this lung. I had this lung. This came basically right from the same area. Now, again, I didn't dig for this stuff. A little bit of digging, because they put in a little foundation, but it wasn't deep. And again, flat as a pancake on one side, and the other side is like it is. This is pleura. This is which is all fascia. Everything you're seeing here is fascia. Fascia, fascia, fascia. My goose is fascia. It's basically the same material as this, only you see how there's white fabric in here? This is made into a rubber bag. Everything else is like this bone, this fascia all over this bone. But this doesn't have to do this all the time. It's a whole different system. This is a rubber bag. The fingers, you have this really tough stuff. You're built in all kinds of different little bits and pieces that are designed to do the job they're designed to do. It's a very, very elegant system. But anyway, this was on a DNA test, or I don't know if I showed you, I will. This is on a DNA test, and let me just show you one other one here. I gotta go over here. This hand was on a DNA test too. It's a left hand. If you put your left hand back, you're going to have that little strap coming down there. It's a tendon. This is the pad that circles your hand. This is the puffy pad here. That little spot is the cleave, right in between your pads. Again, that's the tendon. Your thumb goes off. No, thumb goes off this way. It's the left hand. Thumb goes off that way, and the small fingers go off this way. I have knuckles and all kinds of stuff from this. Now, remember I showed you that grip skin? How it was totally different than the underneath? Same thing here. You see this? Your pads, your hand, your fingers, all this is called friction skin, grip skin. It's the outer coating of the skin, but specifically on your hands and your feet and so forth, where you really do a lot of scrubbing and scraping. And it just peels right off, just like this. Just like the other one I showed you. See it, right? Peeling right off. And this, I think, this is 3 or 4 feet wide, something like that. So these are good-sized creatures. They're just living around on my property. They're all over the place. I mean, everywhere. Literally everywhere. Everywhere. And they're everywhere. Everybody can find them, basically, if you look and you know where to look. And there are some places that the process of preservation wasn't as good as it is here. This was a mud fossil mecca. It's just perfect for mud fossils. As you can see, that's just flawless. You could transplant that sucker. That's a lung. It's got the depression of the heart would have been right here. This is all the pleura, and you can see flat because of the flood. I got another one over here. It's got the whole guy's chest. Oh. I don't think I've ever shown this one, but this is the guy's chest. He died laying flat like this. There's that strap right there. You see that? It's the same thing as this. And inside there, this is where his lungs were. Those are his lungs right there. That's lung alveoli. And there's inside where this is where the lung would have been. Of course, it's mostly collapsed. This is where the ribs are in the back. You see that? That's rib bones. These are little rib bones, pieces of them that, you know, it sort of got smushed around a bit. But these are his back ribs. And this is his lung, and he died like this, and when it stopped, all of this stuff ran off, and all the bloody stuff it turns to stone, but it was like mud. This is nothing more than what the geopolymers are that they have now. They're making them out of body parts, literally. They don't realize it, but they are. They're taking them out of the ground, but they're taking old body parts. You see that? We have new creatures, new species, new all kinds of things. These are no-toes. It's just like our feet, only the toes are built into them. They have a tibia and a fibula. The fibula falls right off because it only is held on by 3 little tendons. The tibia would have sat right there in this cradle. Basically like ours, only these have springs inside. It's a different kind of creature than us, and this is not a one-off by any means. We got a lot of this kind of stuff, and because it's so disruptive to what they have been teaching, they will not allow it. Not only that, look at this. This is a hair follicle. You think I'm kidding you? Hold on a second. All right, you see this? This is a sebaceous gland. There's the pili erector muscle, which lets your hair stand up on end. This is the vein and artery down at the bottom, and this is the hair sticking up. This is where that attachment goes, right there. That's where the erector muscle attaches, and this right here is the sebaceous gland. You see that? You should be able to see that. And that's where the erector muscle attaches. That's exactly what it is. And the hair wraps around, and actually this is where the vein and artery attach right here. And again, this has been all converted nucleophilic substitution. What was in the waters and so forth penetrated and replaced the organic matter and stabilized it. That's what nucleophilic substitution does. It's invading groups and leaving groups. I've shown this hundreds of times, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. That's the attachment, that's the sebaceous gland, that's the hair, and this was going to be a curly-haired person because one side of it's flat. when I first put this out, I'm not kidding you, I said, boy, it's unusual. One side of the hair is flat. It's flat. And all of a sudden, a bunch of people sent in, they said, one side of my hair is flat too, and it's curly. So I guess that's what it is. But, you know, this is not something that should be just dismissed. That thing's 500 times bigger than us. All right, that's for 500 times, if it was a 6-foot person, that's 3,000 feet. That's way over half a mile. My guys are small. Mine was like 170 feet tall. But he's DNA tested. And here's the DNA test. All right, now don't forget, I had a DNA test done 2015. This goes back 7 years. It's time to just clear the table on this. Check it one way or the other. Maybe I'm lying. Maybe I lied about the whole thing. Maybe this is all just nonsense. I don't think so. This is all the 3 things I had done on this test. And it was not cheap. It was an expensive test. And it was the first one done ever that I know of on ancient fossils for DNA, and absolutely on ancient human fossils, and no question whatsoever on giants. It was all done very, very high quality test. They did all kinds of elucidation and this and that, and I don't really understand, I got to be honest with you. It's way above my head. This is not something I work with. All kind of nucleotides. These are invasive chemicals, primers. I don't know what they're doing here, but they did all of this, and it came out that there was no question whatsoever The DNA was perfect, and, well, it wasn't perfect, but it was good quality enough to be absolutely 100% certain that these were human mitochondrial DNA. The negative controls were negative on everything. The quality was excellent on 2 out of the 3. Excellent quality DNA sequence obtained from the 36-inch tip was that big gigantic fingertip 3 feet long, and the lung sample, which is this thing right here. And the other one, the big palm that I showed you, I used a fingertip from it, and it wasn't bad. It was still good, but it wasn't the same. The quality of the sequence obtained from for the lung samples on average less using the secondary type of primers. They used two different sequences of primers, but they got the same thing. So this is what it was. Homo sapien, mitochondrial B and D loop. And these are all the gene sequences. I said, are you 100% certain? He said, 100%. I said, okay. And this is the lab director. And he said, we will stand behind these results 100% certainty that these were, what the samples I submitted were human DNA on the mitochondrial side, and they stand behind that test. The only thing they want you to understand is I was the one that extracted the samples. If I contaminated them, so be it. I did not. I was very careful. I knew what I was doing. I went deep, and I submitted these samples. I can't send them a 400-pound sample. So this is what it was, and that's 6-7 years ago. Then I had the DNA CAT scans done. I had 7 CAT scans done by Jesse Garant and Associates. They're one of the top CAT scanners in the world, I forget what they call it, metrology. And they do work for everybody. I mean, I think Rolls-Royce and all of the big places, because they can see inside of engines and everything else with their scans. Very, very good quality. Excellent people to work with. Jesse Garant and Associates. This is just a couple of quick shots of the CAT scans. This is the 2 tendons that come up. And this is the black, I believe, the vein blood. And this is where the artery blood would have gone, which they drain right out. This is the bone. Remember I said there's a bone, well, obviously there's a bone that hits the next bone, the next bone, the next bone. This is the tip of the finger. As a matter of fact, oh, here it is right here. All right, that's the tip of the finger. So that's like this tip. Now, guess what? This is a right-hand thumb. All right, and I know that because if you take your thumb, you've got an extra chunk here that doesn't sit on the bone. It sits off the side. You see it? Do it on your own thumb. This side is flat. This side is not. It rolls down this way. So this is extra. So we're seeing the bone is right here. So this is a right-hand thumb. The palm I had is a left hand. So the thumb is from the other hand. It came out of the same hole, and the stuff is in a little pile down there. It's probably, the other hand is probably there. But this is the bone, and these are the 2 tendons that come up to the sides of it to make it be able to do this kind of stuff. And again, do your own. All right, this is laying just like that. Now, this is where the flat side was down. So it wasn't like it was rocked this way and the bone fell to the bottom or anything. The whole thing was flat. You see it? Now I got another shot of it. Now again, this is all proven. This is DNA tested. You could test it again. There's no saying you can't DNA test these. I mean, I know you can test them. I did it. All right, this is CAT scan bone. All right, now see, this is the problem with mud fossils. They do what's called nucleophilic substitution. This one here is this finger here, and it's like, I think it's laying like this right here, something like that. But what happens is this got very heavily invaded. So everything almost turns to the same thing. But you can see the tiniest little differentiation here. If you take your time and look at it. Let me bring this in a little closer. You see that faint little outline around there? That's where the bone goes. And it has inside, and then it has an actual outside. Because it flares. It goes from this way and goes in like that. And you can see that if you're really careful enough. And in some of the other shots they did, you can see it, but it's not like you'd really hope to see a really good, strong definition. No, that's not the way mud fossils work. They you don't see as quite as separate. No, and I can't get back at these CAT scans because I used to use Windows, and this was when I had Windows. Now I use Linux, and I haven't. I don't know if I could use them. I still have the file somewhere, I'm sure. But at any rate, what else we got here? All right, that's that same fingertip again. That's this one here. You see how you look at this? You can't see much. It just looks like a rock. You see this right here? This is where the tendons locked in. This here was where the fingernail was, and you can see it here. You can see it. So this is no question. This is DNA tested. This should be some big deal. It's not a deal in anything. It's just it's hidden. It's swept under the carpet because it actually points to God and Jesus and all that stuff, and giants and dragons and the flood. And they have agreed at Yale. Derek Briggs, who I tried to present this to, has agreed, yes, there was a great flood. And in 2016, nobody's ever heard him say this. Nobody will ever hear it, but Derek Briggs is at Yale. He was the one I first tried to get to look at my stuff, refused. He says, yes, there was a worldwide flood with all kinds of sand, silicates, and it preserved exceptional preservation of soft-bodied, just one layer, biota, which means creatures and plants and everything. It was promoted by silica-rich oceans, a very fast worldwide event. Rapid precipitation of silica cements in this one layer worldwide. How the fossils preserved remains controversial. No, it doesn't. I've shown. Derek should know this, and he should apologize, and they should, they should be held accountable for some. This is totally against what they're supposed to be doing, and there is a thing called. Well, I'm not going to start throwing rocks. I'm just going to start showing rocks. How about that? No throwing. Let's just get back to showing. Okay, I showed you this one from the Today Show. This was just from 2 weeks ago. But this is the one I really originally saw, was from Il Ferron Tours, which I'm going to try to get a hold of them. This was 3 years ago they put this up. Basically the same thing. In a pyramid, a great cavity the size of a plane was confirmed by a new scan in Egypt. Now listen to what they have to say. They did a nice job. Now, if I would need somebody doing these tours to actually look at these things. I've tried to approach a few people to do the tours, and so far I haven't had any luck. They might be interested. This would be really great because they're if that's what they do as tours, and they're going to be there, they might as well take a look and see what I'm saying is true or not. I can make it very easy to see about these things. I understand the textures. I understand the rocks. I understand everything about them. So here's what they have to say.
It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. Yet the Great Pyramid of Giza has never yielded all its secrets. No major new structure has been discovered since the Middle Ages. Nobody has ever fathomed how it was built 4,500 years ago. But in November 2017, the Scan Pyramids team published their findings in Nature magazine. They announced a new major discovery at the very heart of the pyramid. They detected above the Grand Gallery a previously unknown cavity at least 30 meters long. They named it SPBV, Scan Pyramids Big Void. It's the second important discovery the researchers have made after the announcement in October 2016 of a corridor situated behind the gigantic chevrons of the North Face. The level of confidence of these discoveries is more than 5 sigma. In other words, it's 1 in 3.5 million that these findings are by chance. Designed and directed by Cairo University and the HIP Institute, the Scan Pyramids mission began in October 2015. Its aim is...
All right, I'm not going to go any further with this because I think I've shown you enough, but you can see that these blocks are not all perfect. And this, I believe, as I probably have already mentioned, was put in here to support a main vein that had evacuated itself and was a weak spot that could have collapsed, possibly. That's the only thing I can think of. Okay, I am going to go with this as being geopolymer. These are not anywhere near anything else that's here that is that size. And I believe they made this from grinding up all the components and then mixing it with aluminum silicates and then water. It turns into a geopolymer. It's better than concrete. Geopolymers are better than concrete, and all you're doing is grinding up dead bodies and mixing it with water. Right here it is, right here. All rock-forming feldspars are aluminum silicates. All right, plus they got a bunch of other stuff in with it. But this is feldspar. This is feldspar. All the stuff I have been showing is made from feldspar. It's the most common mineral, I believe, on the earth, or it's damn close. And what that does is it seals and protects and causes it to turn into stone. Aluminum silicates, remember that, aluminum silicates. What do you do with geopolymer? Listen to this. Geopolymer in cement is a binding system, hardens at room temperature. This is just, all they're doing is grinding up dirt. Aluminum silicates. You start with that, and then kaolin clays, which is nothing but, facial clays and skin and all of these different body parts. You grind it up, but you have to add aluminum silicates. Without the aluminum silicates, it doesn't work. Aluminum silicates. Minerals are minerals composed of aluminum, silicon, and oxygen, plus countercations. That's all the extra stuff. And a kaolin clays. It's just like this. This is exactly what this stuff is. Exactly the same stuff. So my stuff is nothing more than geopolymer, but was a living and turned into solid stone. Now, what they use, listen to this. Room temperature hardening is more readily achieved with the addition of a source of calcium. That's your bones. Often blast furnace slag. What is blast furnace slag? Listen to this. It's obtained by quenching molten iron, which is blood, from a blast furnace in water or steam. It produces a glassy granular product that is then dried and ground into a fine powder. Right? And that's what they use for all these binders. But you have to start with aluminum silicates. And then you put in whatever you want. User-friendly alkaline responses, and you get, plus some water, you get geopolymer cements. And they are better, literally, than Portland cement. It's a more economically friendly alternative to conventional Portland cement. It relies on minimally processed natural materials, which are body parts, or industrial byproducts to significantly reduce the carbon footprint of cement production, while also being highly resistant to many common concrete durability issues. Rocks hold up pretty good. They hold up better than bricks. All right, now once again, I showed this picture yesterday, but I am doing under the Fair Use Act. I'm just showing it for transitional information. This is what really turned me on. This is from Igor Bondarenko. If you want to follow him, Igor Bondarenko. And this is the scaling on the outside. Now, when I saw that, it freaked me out because that is basically the same thing you see down in South America. And you say, well, what do you mean by that, Roger? Well, here's what I mean by that. These molded little blobs and these little tabs on them. You see those? That's the key, those tabs. You see those tabs? That is, why would they put those tabs there? I know why they put them there, and they didn't put them there, they just happened to be there. They are biology. And I'm going to show you that very clearly. This really turned me on because I had never seen this before, except for this picture. Now, then you have this. Now, this is the Great Pyramid of Cheops on the Giza Plateau in Cairo. And but then it has all these blocks that are the normal looking blocks like you see on the pyramids. But that is not what I've ever seen before. But I've seen them down in South America, in Bolivia and Peru and all down that area. And we're going to go into how those were created and why they're, why they fit together so well seamlessly. Because they were cut when they were wet. Okay, as we have heard, nobody can explain how the pyramids were built, and nobody can explain about these blocks, which are exactly the same blocks that I am showing you in South America. They could have literally been moved from there to here. They look so similar. They're identical. Identical. Remember what you just saw? And here they are. The same thing. The same colors even. You see the same colors? This light brown and the pinkish looking things? Exact same thing. No difference whatsoever. No difference. No différence, as they say in Francais. Okay, so what does this mean? What is the story about these blobs here with these little bumps and fitted together and all molded and perfectly seamed together, all kinds of oddball shapes? You'd never expect them to be able to make them fit this way and be so seamless. And why would they put these bumps on here? Well, they didn't. This was cut while it was still soft. And these were from creatures' bodies. I know it sounds insane, but it is quite literally true. Most of those tendinous materials were made from tendons. Well, most of those rocks, those tendinous rocks were made from tendons. Okay, now, don't forget, I am a material scientist. I show evidence to support my positions. This is where they broke those things off on those little slabs, and they cut these when they were still moist, which means the creatures hadn't died that long ago. They cut them and broke these tabs. This ball is on a strap, and it should have anchored right into there. And this is a tendon mat. And here's what they look like. They have 1, 2, 3, 4. They have a whole batch of them in a row like that, and they reach out and they in place into bone, and that allows the muscle to pull on that and glide that tendon back and forth. Very slippery, slurpy, small leucine-rich proteins, and it slides with what they call synovial fluid. Very, very, very fluid. They just break these tabs off. They cut them and they put them up on the walls. And these balls are all over the earth, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them in you too. And that's what they look like, just like this. You know, in a big creature. And this is obviously an electron microscope, but this is what they look like. Now, you see how this is all slurped up? This was one of these straps. It came back and it attached somewhere to right there, to whatever it attached to was one of these straps. When they break, they just go blip. That's called a wrinkle zone. All the tension that was in there comes forward. and you get that wrinkle zone. But you can still obviously see the ball. That ball would have been stuck into something right up to about there. All right, and it would have come out through here, and this would have attached to this mat. And they just break right off. You see the little spot there? And then there would have been another one right on top of it. You see, just like this. This one has a bunch of them. This one here would have slid right on top of here. This is what the Slurpees are. So this is only this one would have been laying sideways like that. See how flat that side is? They all died in the Great Flood flat on one side, basically. That's what you got. No, this is in a human being, or in some kind of creature that's still either probably alive still, or this is from an autopsy or something. All right, this just goes way beyond extreme coolness. We all know, you now know, that these bumps were where they snapped off those straps. All right, which I showed you right here. It's the exact same thing. The bumps they snapped off. I mean, it's identical to what we're looking at in the ones that are like this. Now the other ones are shaped into blocks that are, pretty good squared off blocks, but they still have these things. So, and they still have the rounded edges. So what can we take away from this? Let's look at where these blocks came from. They didn't just show up here magically. They had to come from somewhere. All right, so this is where they magically appeared from. Now, how did they cut that out of this big thing? Apparently, this was just kept coming down this way, and these slabs were cut out of here. How did they do that? With a knife? They were obviously not, well, nothing is obvious. Let's just stop with the obvious. But I could tell you what is obvious. They took this material, and we could, I'm sure, test it to say that it's the same material back there in those walls. All right, I am pretty confident to say that, and I think you could be confident in assuming that. Now, how did they cut those slabs? Well, here's how they did it. Here's how they did it. They had equipment. They had equipment here when this all was not stone. At this point, it was not stone. It was soft. Whatever did this, whatever type of equipment, and you see way out here, you see this? These are like tank treads. Here and way out there, you see that's the edge, way, way out there. And this, I'm not sure whether they drove on this or the tank treads, or this was just to stabilize it so that it wouldn't go back and forth in the mud, basically. And this is where they cut them out of. Now this right here, that's connective tissue. Whenever you see the whitish looking stuff mixed in with this, that is mineralization. It's connective tissue primarily. Now, there's going to be certain areas in the tendons that are very, very, very desirable. And there's going to be other areas that's basically garbage. They use both. Some places they absolutely phenomenal work, and other places, well, they just did what they could with what they had. But this is a very interesting artifact because it appears that it came down out of the sky and landed. From what I can determine, it's in Fuerte de Sempiata, Bolivia. Somebody would have to go there and look and see, how did it get here? Did it some kind of marks to bring it up here? I couldn't find anything about it other than it's just here. And it's just overlooked. Another one of these overlooked artifacts. So don't forget, this is the desirable stuff. This is just as flat as a pancake, smooth, just gorgeous stuff. But it has the bumps, and they just broke the bumps off. This is the most desirable. And then you go from there to like the Achilles tendon type. All right, this is the one right here that they cut these steps out of. And I mean, these things were just so big, you just can't even imagine. The kids use these as slides. They slide in these grooves down the hills. Wait till I show you this stuff. It's overwhelming for the neurons. I don't disagree with that. Oh, by the way, you see that? That's an abrupt transition. This whole area here, you come up a certain area, heavily mineralized, and then it starts to turn pink. That's the abrupt transition between the very heavily mineralized to the not so mineralized, and then it just gets less and less mineralized as you go along. The Achilles tendons, they just run literally forever in these creatures. They just keep on going, baby. Does that look familiar? That's the Achilles tendon. I mean, it's shocking. Some woman said to me, she said, "I love your stuff, but it's jarring." It is. If that's not jarring, then you are unjarrable. Look at this. This is tendon. That's exactly what I just showed you a second ago. And they cut those chunks and they brought them back here. How they moved them from here to there, I don't know. But I can tell you what, this is tendon, and that's where this came from. Because we just saw where they cut the slabs out of. This is not a big mystery when you stop and allow your mind to see what you see. It's almost like there's a veil over people's minds, between their eyes and their minds. I'm not kidding you. I have never seen anything like it. I am just astounded. After 12 years of denial by people that you always thought were pretty intelligent, to be able to just deny these things because they are so spectacular. And a lot of it is because they support God against Darwinism, and it supports creationism, and all of these myths. Everything I found supports the ancient myths, 100%. And that's all of them. Not just the Bible stuff, not just Hesiod, not Ovid, well, all of those. And in addition, Apollodorus, that's the killer. Apollodorus. Woohoo! That'll turn your head around about 37 times. This is tendon. Why is this not being thought about? You see this here? This is tendon. The kids are using as slides. They polished it up nice. It's hard. It is hard, and boy, you can shine it up shiny. This is the Slurpee. This is the stuff that I talk about, which is the synovial sheath. And that covers all of these things. And each one of these fibers, and there's a ton of them here, have to slide along the next fiber. And that is what creates, where is it here? That creates this. You have to have good synovial fluids. And they have to be slurpy and moving. And look at how the coefficient of friction is almost nothing. I mean, it's just unbelievably slippery. And that's what makes your tendons and muscles and joints and everything work. And if you don't keep moving them, that stuff gets hardened up. So now instead of having this coefficient of friction, you're way up here where it's just like glue, and that's what makes you stiff and sore. So I like to throw those kind of things in because they're meaningful. This stuff, it's nice. This is all wonderful, but there is some additional meaning here and there. Now, again, that's tendon. That is Achilles tendon. And I know exactly how to see, well, the chemistry is undeniable, first of all. Secondly, the anatomy is undeniable. And these things will have blood in them. Now, tendons have almost no blood whatsoever. They are literally almost devoid of blood, but there'll be a taste here and there. But tendons, I don't care. Well, let me show you what they did on a wall down there, because they hit from an abrupt transition, which means they were either in, it might have even been muscle to bone, but they hit the bone. Sometimes you can have the tendon right up against the bone, and they got a little of each, and they decided, well, we're going to use it because it was a big piece. I'll show you. All right, so here you are, these tracks. These are the mineralizations which are within this material, whether it was muscle or tendon, I'm not sure, because it depends on how it dried out and what conditions it was in, because they can turn brown, they can turn like glass. Look at this, hold on. You see this right here? This is the same stuff as that right there. It's exactly the same. This is an abrupt transition from a tendon. But it was in such a condition, in such a place where it turned into selenite. But you see how beautiful that abrupt transition. This is literally the glue, mineralization glue, that glued this to the next one with additional minerals. That's why we're seeing this. Same thing as this is additional minerals here. Sometimes they're perfectly clear like this. I believe that was a mussel. And there's still a little bit of red, just a taste of redness in there, which it was from the blood. But I believe this is mussel, and all these little lines in here are sarcomeres, breaks where the sarcomeres are. And you see the curvature to it? I believe that's a mussel. Tendons are primarily are very, very flat to speak of. Depends on how they died and where they were, but it doesn't get any better than that. You can't get a better abrupt transition than that. Isn't that something? All right, now, so that's that. And that's this. And they cut these slabs and they built these walls. And this was when they did it. There's no question about it. There's absolutely zero question about that. And every single bit of this is right on the surface of the earth. There's not even any dirt over the top of this. So this is not that long ago. And Velikovsky recorded these events, and he documented them because they were recorded in every single culture on Earth. Ones that had no interactions with other ones, had no idea the other ones even existed. And their carvings, their texts, their documentation, their codexes, their glyphs, all of that had the same time frame, which was 3,500 years ago. And the same event. And the event was that the Earth almost got hit by a giant comet coming out of space towards Earth, and it was brilliant, glowing, more brilliant than the sun. And for 7 days, you have to read Velikovsky, and you have to read Apollodorus, and you have to read Hesiod, and you have to read all of them. 7 days, this body approached Earth and cooked Earth, literally cooked it as it approached. And when it actually bounced right off our atmosphere, there was enormous electrical discharges, absolutely enormous. Push to shove makes huge, huge glows and electrical conductivity, lightning, flashes. Everything just went insane, and the whole Earth literally, basically boiled. Almost all the oxygen was gone. They said after this event, it was recorded that they literally couldn't make fires start. There wasn't enough oxygen to make the fires. The oxygen combined with the hydrogen, the gases in the air, and it made water. Hydrogen and oxygen together is water, H2s and an O. All right, normally they're in the gases in the air. You slam them, compress them, they turn into water. That's where a lot of the water came from. And it came down boiling. It didn't come down as nice little happy little raindrops. So that was from that impact, that compression. If you compress air, you got water. That's just the way it works. You're pushing the oxygens and the hydrogens together to make them turn into H2s and O's. So, and of course the waters from below, all of the earth structure, shifted. And as far as I'm concerned, the earth itself was some form of biology. I can't tell you what it was, but it was a corpse or a body or one or the other or both. And that somebody very important said, Jesus Christ. He said, when you find the earth, you will find a body and a corpse. And boy, I'll tell you. And then he said, when you do, you will marvel and you will be disturbed. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of things he said sure made sense to me. And then he also said, if they told him to be quiet, the rocks would cry out, which they are screaming. Okay, this one here is obviously another tire track. You see, this is the outside of the tire, and this is the other side of the tire. And it's going up over the top of a wet tendon. And this is the kind of tire like you'd see in a snowmobile or something that it's designed to work in this muddy environment. That's what I'm seeing. You see this? That's a grabber to pull itself forward through the mud. And that's what it's doing here, only it's a tendon. Alright, these are the desirable tendons, and they just break them off like I showed about 1,000,000 times. And this is the craftsmanship. Look at that. Isn't that fabulous? But you have to have that good tendon to do that. And then they just use something without any bumps. Now, you see this right here? This, to me, I think they were trying to figure out how to work with these tendons. That was the best way to work with them. Should they leave the bumps sticking like that? You see that? You see that? You can actually see the core of the tendon right there. And this little flap here is like a supporting flap that, as you see, they have these little supports so that the tendon won't rip out. You know, it's well designed, and the fabrics are here to do the job, you know, that you'd expect them to do if it was designed fabulously, which it is. Now this looks like a test wall. I tried for the life of me to figure, why would they do this? They scrape this stuff down all the way. It doesn't look too bad, actually. And the same thing here. Maybe these are different types of tendon, came from different places. I don't know. Maybe this was just from here down to here. And the same thing from here down to here. And these were the ones that had the attachments left in them. Maybe they decided, well, should we go with this, or keep and just break the bumps off? Explain this to me if that's not the case. I can't figure out any other reason. All right, you want to see something here? Check this out. These are all in your bones. And anywhere anchors, anywhere tendons anchor. The anchor, the ball anchors, and everything grows around that ball, and that ball, every one of them has a little strap that comes out. Some of them don't have straps. Some of them are just like pockets that are just pockets to give it a gripping surface. But most of them have anchors, have straps. You see them coming out, all the little straps. And some of them are in your flesh, some are in your bones, but there's millions. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of them there are in your body, but there is a lot. Now, all of those fibers run down, and you want to see what it looks like if you were to cut it off right here? Watch this. This is what it looks like right here, because those are tendons. Where's my tendons? Where's my tendons? There they are. Right there. Those are all those fibers coming down. You see, remember, the ball would be way down here, and all of those little fibers came out. Oh no, I'm sorry. The ball would be way down here, and all the fibers coming out of them run up until they eventually come out to one big stalk. But in the meantime, it's all these little fibers. The ability for the human body to withstand tension and tearing and ripping and to lift and do all, it's just unmatched, or to any creature's body. These collagen fibers are absolutely incredibly strong, and there is so many of them. It's just, you know, you can rip them out of your shoulders, and I have, both of mine. But they're pretty well anchored, and this is all of these. So what you're looking at is these little tiny spots are like maybe right out of this one somewhere, or maybe they're back here. I don't know. But you can see there's a bundle, and then there's a bundle. There's these other bundles. So maybe it's right down here. I don't know where it is, but you can see the size of it. It's just ridiculously gigantic. These creatures were ridiculously gigantic. All right. right. If you recall, I mentioned that sometimes they use the best stuff, sometimes they use whatever they had laying around. This is one of those shots. Now, this is the corner here. You see this? This is right here. That is clearly not what that is. You see this? That circle right there going down would have been one gigantic bone. Bones have a lot of red blood in them, a lot of iron, a lot of marrow. Now, is this tendon or is this muscle? I don't know. But you're going to have a transition between where the muscle meets the tendon, meets the bone, all that. And this is all that. Now, what is this over here? The same things. You see, this is what you saw at the pyramids. They cut these blocks the same way. Now, these aren't the real good ones. These are the little leftovers here. This must be just, I don't know. They decided to use them, but you can actually even see the blood vessel in there. You see it? If somebody was able to go up here and look at this stuff close with a magnifying glass, like look at this one up here. They made that's just trash. So this end of town here, they didn't really care all that much about. Now, that's in contrast to the other end of town, which would have been here. Look at that. Isn't that something? Somebody really took pride in their work. You know, I got sort of distracted. I'm not sure whether I showed you this or not, but this is Typhon. He's the dragon in the desert in Morocco. And he's written about in Apollodorus 1.6.3. Apollodorus 1.6.3. Typhon was his name, with his red flaring eyes, his unkempt, all nasty looking hair and feathers and all kinds of stuff. And he spit down here at a fish to kill it. And this is his scaled dragon throat that runs down here, all the way down. He was so tall that his head brushed the stars. And here he is right here. Here's his tail, all the way back up to here. I think I already showed you this, or I might not have. But this is where I think these might be the same sort of situation as the pyramids. Might have been like a dragon's tail or some part of a creature's body that represented these scales. Because I have a dragon scale here. And they do have all of that lines in them. And they do have blood in them. See that? That's blood right there. That's blood. And that's blood right there. And these chambers would have run down through these blood vessels. And there apparently it was one somewhere in here that they had to put that arch to keep it from collapsing, because there's the blood runs through there. Everything has to be serviced with blood. So somewhere there's going to be a chamber in there with a little bit of blood that everybody feeds off of. That's the chamber that apparently they just found in the Great Pyramid. We're going to look, because it might be in here. It might have been right under there. But you see how this has all these same lines in there? We're built in blocks, you see it? Now, is that exactly the same as the pyramid? I don't know. Je ne sais pas. I do not know. However, it could be. No saying it's not. But I can tell you one thing almost for absolutely certain. This is some form of a dragon scale. And this right here, that Slurpee, is the glue. You see it? That right there is the glue that glued this scale to the next one down below it. And this is the tab. You see it all wrinkly here? That let this scale go up and down and slurp with its slurp as it was going down against the next scale. And the blood runs right from there. You see how it twists around here? That's where the blood runs. And there's another little one up here. We're going to put it in a microscope in a second. But you see all those little lines? Is that the same as the pyramids? I do not know. But it's certainly worth taking a look at. All right, but is this the same as, because they're all over that plateau. And the plateau is a rise. And in the ancient maps, it shows them as being on that plateau. And this was the dragon, and I showed you where he was on Earth. Oh, by the way, you saw the fish, I think. I showed this hundreds and literally hundreds and hundreds of times over the last 6 or 7 years. I can't get anybody to pay attention. That's the fish. That's the dragon. They're talking about finding a hole in the pyramid being the biggest thing in the 21st century. Well, I can't agree with that. I would think that this maybe would sort of supersede a hole in a pyramid. And is that like a flank of pyramids, like that dragon scaled tail? See, it comes all the way down here. And again, Apollodorus, you read it. Could these be the pyramids? Obviously they're not the pyramids, but could it be something along that line? Let's take a look at what they show in the old maps. All right. I have not arguments, but disputes with people all the time. They think that these things were trees. And I think they thought back then they were trees too. And they whittled them down and left the pyramids sticking up. That's what it looks like to me. This is a map from Roosevelt, Babylon, Egypt, whatever. I can't remember where I got this from. Whatever that says, I can't tell. Can you see what it says? Anyway, that's, they thought, it looks to me, that they thought these were trees. Now, let's zoom in on this. Hold on. I got it again here somewhere. Here it is. You see these? They look like they're all trees. They look like they're all trees. And that's what they thought they were building on top of, was trees. Or not building on top, well, maybe building on top of, but certainly I would say whittling down. Why would they put trees here? It looks like to me tree trunks. If you see it differently, I'd like to know why you see it differently. Because even down here, they show like trees bordering this whole thing. Now, that's exactly what a dragon tail would look like. That's how they work. They have big, long bunch of bumps. Now, the other thing is this right here. This is a map from, it's called the Atlas Catalan, Abraham Kresk. They knew the dragon was here. Here he is right there, running that whole length across North Africa. You see this? This is the dragon. This is where his tail runs all the way out. And it flares at the end. I didn't show you the flare. The flare is more of feathers. Now, back here is where his head got chopped off, right there. And I show this all the time, the chop of his neck. Now, somebody translated all this stuff, and it was really interesting. Because they talk about all the people that lived where all you could see was their eyes, and then they had another one that was where when the people died, they threw them in these pots to burn them up. And the women would quite often jump in with their husbands, even though they weren't dead. They just jump in to burn themselves up. And it said, but the men never did. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. And they talk about the pearl divers and all kinds of different things and how they traded, and it was very interesting. And I believe they're talking about this, it would have been Atlantis. It's right underneath the dragon. That's where Atlantis was, and they're showing a ship coming in here. Now, I don't know, I can't remember if that's what they were talking about, coming past Atlantis into the, which at one time was the Libyan Ocean. It was like the Libyan Sea, they called it. Now, this is the dragon, and that's where his throat was cut. All right, remember, did I show you that? I think I did, but I could never show it too many times, because he bled out here in the desert. This is all on top of the earth. This is not buried. Here's his head. It runs all the way down here, and slap-o, he got a cut right there. And guess what happens when you get cut? Red blood comes out, which is here. And it also comes out black because you have veins and arteries. When you get cut and your throat gets cut, you bleed out both of them. This is both of them, the red and the black. And guess what red blood does? It makes things turn brilliantly green in the middle of the desert. That's kind of an unusual expectation, isn't it? You see how green that is? And then what happens to it? Well, it's coming out of, obviously, dragon-scaled throat. These are all the dragon scales of the throat. And it said in Apollodorus 1.6.3, he cut his throat, Zeus that is, with his great and mighty sword, or thunderbolts, or whatever it was. But he cut it. And that's where the red blood is, and that's where all the things are growing because it died there. And this runs the whole width of North Africa. That's why they show it going all the way crack, all the way back, all the way back. And the very end is here. That's why they show it flared out. It's more feathery, because they talk about him being feathery as well. You see, it's some kind of feathery look to this stuff. It's still dragony, as far as I'm concerned. That's pretty dragony as far as I can tell. But that's the tips of his tail. And it flutes out at the very end. See it? Just exactly what it shows on the map. They knew. They knew his throat was cut. They knew Atlantis was over here. They knew everything ran out through here when Atlantis collapsed. All this was runoff. And that gigantic fish is being attacked by this dragon spitting toxin on him, eating right through his his scales and everything, right down into his vital flesh. And if you come down here and look, and you get any biologist, get an anatomy book and look up blood vessels, capillaries, arteries, and veins. Here's what happens. Arteries have the big red blood coming, heavy-duty amounts. Then they go off into the blood vessels, which feed the capillaries. The capillaries literally flush the blood across all the cells. You see how much action is going on here around these capillaries, these little red ones? Then eventually, after it washes across all the cells, all of this is getting flushed with blood. All getting flushed with blood. Eventually it gets to here, there's nothing left in it that's any good. It squirts into this vein. That's why the veins are black. Remember I showed you before the vein and arteries, blood black and red? Here it is right there. And the only reason we can see this is because his toxins from this giant dragon up here ate through the fin, the scales. Those are the scales, all the way down here, down here. This fish runs all the way down like this, and his tail runs way down here, see? This is the tail down here. And this is his fin right up here. Yeah. Now, coming down here, I believe this is his eye. It gets a little obscured over here because it got pretty well torn up. That I'm not sure what it is, but forget about that for now. This is his eye. He might have been biting something, another squid or something, I don't know. This is his body. It comes back down here, and that's the tail. All right, are you with me so far? This is the fleshy part. All right, this is the fleshy, vital flesh. This is that flappy little fin that they have, like this here. It flaps around and it guides the fish as they go. Now, this part here is where it's flush with blood. This, I don't know how much blood is in fins. I don't think very much. Now, what did Typhon do here? Well, it looks to me is he intentionally attacked that fish. I can see no other option. If I had him on trial, I would say, it was intentional. Don't you try to fool me. You're a liar. because this is all I can see is this stuff comes right out of his beards. You see these two beards? And I was talking to somebody the other day, and there's some word they use for this. He knew about these features, and he said they have some word that they use, but it's just a name. It's a beard of a dragon. You see it? This is his beards. They show him with beards. The same thing with Quetzalcoatl, and he has a beard too. Well, he's got two of them actually, same thing. And it came out of here, and all of that noxious stuff came out of this area. And it is as noxious gets. And this is what they used, or Typhon used, to attack that fish. And it is some really, really noxious stuff. You see it? You see it over here? Let me let it settle in for a minute so you can get a good look at noxicity. You see that? Ooh, you see that? This is not a tiny little thing either. From here to here, how far do you think that is? I don't know. So let's find out. It's a half a mile. That is a half a mile across right there. So we're talking miles and miles of nastiness flowing down, so nasty that it almost is literally combusting. You see this? And that is coming down onto that fish. And here's the fish's back. Now, here's the fin. The fin, I suppose you could burn up the fin and it wouldn't be a death sentence. However, this is what I think I just showed you, the blood vessels and the arteries and the capillaries and the veins. The black is what brings it back up to get recharged. You see how every black has all of these tiny little capillaries feeding into it, every single one. You see it? You find a black, that's what you're going to find. They're bringing back the used blood, see it? Yeah. Doesn't matter where it is, see? All right, so I hope you understand that's what this was. And the only reason you can see this is because that toxic cut through his vital flesh. Now you get down here and the toxin didn't get this far. You see, this is, underneath here is vital flesh. You can't see like you can up above, but you can still see there's some kind of thing going on here, some biology. Up above, you can actually see, this might have had a little bit of effect come down to it. But up here, you saw what you saw. Now, should this just be overlooked because it's too much for the human mind to allow to be accepted? Oh, by the way, the Cape Verde Islands was created out here by this collapse. And when they stayed the Straits, Atlantis was just outside the Straits. Well, guess what? Here they are right here. That's the Straits that I believe Plato was talking about. I don't think he ever said the Straits of Hercules or the Straits of Gibraltar or any other thing. I think he just said it was right outside the Straits. Or it was on the other side of the Straits or something like that. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, the passageway into the Libyan Ocean. Now, this one here is not very wide, I don't think. A mile and a half. All right, 1.5 miles. So that would give you plenty of room for their ships of that time to get in and out of there, but it would keep it a pretty close harbor. I mean, closed entrance. And there they were right there. And they had more capability than you can imagine. You see all these little inlets and things? I think they were using all of these little spots as boat harbors. If you come in really close, you can see. You see out here? This looks like one of the rings. And they were coming right up to them with their boats. But I also know there's another reason for this. I'm not going to go into that now. But that was the collapse that Plato talked about. Now, he talked about it being 9,000 years ago, or it could have even been 900 years ago. Nothing here is that long ago. There is nothing buried. It's even when they say about these new discoveries, they didn't have to even move a rock, or you didn't have to break anything. It's all just laying there on the top of the surface of the earth. And it's just nobody's been able to open their eyes big enough to see this. And I couldn't either. I was studying Atlantis for years. And then one day I looked and I saw a fish and a dragon within 15 minutes. And it was something dropped on me about that. So. And then I found everywhere, so I started looking around. And I found Quetzalcoatl right here. And he's spitting his toxins out into the Gulf. This is a hypoxia zone, totally dead. Nothing can live here because these are extreme heavy-duty salt domes. Unbelievably nasty. Incredibly nasty. Devastatingly nasty. Hypoxically nasty. That means nothing can live there, nothing can grow there. It's just a dead zone. And that all got spit right out of Quetzalcoatl's mouth. All over here. Now, was he trying to kill something? It doesn't appear to be. Because this is very low and this is very deep. This is running down. Now, can I show his feathered headdress? His headdress ran all up around here. So this would be a feather. I know feathers quite well. All right, let's see if we can find something that looks like that. All right, in the middle of some feathery looking stuff. And it would be coming right out of here. So let's dig in and see if we can find any feathers. Yeah, there's one that looks like it might be a feather. Twisted like that. Let's see if it is or not. Well, by gum, it sure looks like one to me. What do you think? You see the similarity there? By the way, Greg Morrison, a good friend of mine, sent me a feather from a giant feather. It's not as big as these things, but it was 3 inches thick, just the feather itself. And it looks exactly like a turkey feather. It's 3 inches thick. It's about, maybe that, well, here it is, hold on. Here it is right there. And I'll show you where he got it from. This is exactly the same look as this turkey feather. And this is the thickness of it right here. That's the feather itself. And the other side is the other side of the feather. I think it was a turkey. I'm not kidding you. And he found this, I think it's in Tennessee somewhere. The guy comes up with some fabulous stuff. The stuff he sent me the other day absolutely freaked me out. I showed it, and then now I found out mostly the source is sand, and it's bones. The coating that surrounds bones turns to sand. It looks like to me. Because I always wondered where all the sand came from. And now you're seeing sand of all kinds of different colors. They were in different spots of the body that had different chemistry. That's all it is. But the bones would have created these colors. And these colors are dictated by these transition metals. All right? And these are just different oxygenation states that is always continuously doing this in your blood. These are all things in your blood. You need all these things to carry around, all these different oxygenation states to pick up things and deliver things. That's how it's done in aqueous solutions, somewhere it says it in here. These are ligands, which means they're little pinchers. They pinch onto stuff, carry them over, drop them off, pick up a couple of extra electrons and keep on moving. They go back to the heart, lungs, kidneys, liver. Anyway, this is what happens in your blood. In a watery solution, salt waters. Salt waters, transition metals equals life. Of course, you need a bacteria in there to make the enzymes. And wait, I got to show you this, because I've been talking about enzymes the whole time. I know I go off on little tangents, but this is important. Enzymes are the products that make you healthy and even can affect your mood. And bacteria make enzymes. If you don't have the bacteria, you do not get the enzymes. And they just came out with an article today that this one enzyme that they found can make you have a bad mood if you don't have it. You see this? I just got this today. A single enzyme, which means a single bacteria. Because every bacteria makes an enzyme. One single bacterial enzyme could be behind some people's depression. All right? I had a guy the other day told me he just started taking probiotics and immediately he felt his mood changed. He felt real calm. Now listen to this. This is hilarious because I'm going to tell you this is exactly correct. AI could be our best chance of finding life on Mars. Here's why. I can tell you exactly why. People can't see. They can't see what's in front of their faces. They can't find it here on Earth, all the things I showed you. The same things are on Mars. Identical same things. Huge, gigantic biology, shown it hundreds of times. Same response, nothing. Dead silence. All right. Here's something hiding in your hotel room. Parasites and stuff. And this is the stuff that turned into sea monsters after all the big gigantic creatures died. I'm not kidding you. They had parasites in them. Those things are 1,100 miles long. Where do you think they were hosts? You know what a host is? He said, come on in, live in me, have a nice time, everybody get along. Parasites, no problem, I got plenty of room. Well, the guy dies. So you got to go find a new house. Well, the ocean works, sort of. They get out there, there's not enough to eat. So they find a bunch of sailors. And these are the kind of, in your body there's something called extremophiles. And they live in acids and salts and nasty, nasty places. And they are crazy looking things, wormy looking things and snaky looking things and nasty looking things of every nature that you can think of, extremophiles. And that's what they had living in them too. And they were big because the creatures were big. They went into the oceans and they were seen everywhere around the world. As a matter of fact, I have a map, I think, here somewhere. Oh, where's our map of sea monsters? Maybe I don't have it here. Oh yeah, here it is right here. You see this? Look at these monsters. These are the kind of things you find inside of a person's body. I'm not kidding you. You have things living in you you would never, ever even want to see. And they just live there. That's where they live. And inside of you and me and every living creature, bacteria live, and there are thousands and thousands of species of bacteria. And they're single-celled living creatures, and that could have been some of the creatures that were there. And actually, we determined some of the clams and things like that are inside of some of these body tissues. They were filter feeders. They were cleaning the body of its toxins. That's what their job would be. Because we found some, Tyson has found some in his mudfossil walls out there that appear to be embedded in the flesh. And they always say, well, this guy can't be, because there's clams in there. Well, clams are filter feeders. You know what that means? They take all of the stuff out of the moisture, out of the waters, and they clean it all up. And then they poop it out. And what would they poop it out to? They'd poop it out so that that person or that creature, that monster, would be able to use it for food. Same thing that happens in our gut. You eat something that goes through your stomach. What do you think happens? It doesn't just jump into your body and become tissue. A carrot doesn't turn into a muscle. That carrot gets digested. Digestion means it gets eaten up into little tiny bits and pieces. And what does that? Enzymes. And what does that? Why is that? Bacteria. So then after the bacteria and the enzymes do what they do, that carrot now is in molecules. It's in bits and pieces, atomically ready to create tissues or bones or teeth or whatever it does. And some of them have more of a certain element in them than other ones. That's all it is. You say, you got to have that certain thing to eat, and peanuts have this, and Brussels sprouts has that, and they tell you all kinds of things are good for you because of the things that are within them. But you have to break those down. They don't just jump into your body. And that's what your bacteria does. It creates a chemistry set, which is an enzyme. The enzyme breaks down the food. The food now becomes literally poop inside your body. Your body goes and says, give me some of that, give me some of that, give me some of that. And then it says, okay, we used up all that other stuff. Now we got a bunch of garbage. We got to get rid of it. A bacteria will come and grab a hold of it and carry it to the lymph nodes. Drops it in the lymph nodes. The lymph nodes have to do some more chemistry to it and then deliver it into the excretory system. All right, urine, feces, whatever, sweat. But that's your lymph nodes. Those are the garbage handlers. All right, but the bacteria have to deliver the stuff, and then the bacteria have to be there wherever stuff is being delivered to create the enzymes to do the chemistry. So it all starts at the bacteria. Now, how big were these things? Were they just bacteria? Maybe. I don't know. They were certainly, I would think, creatures that were in the body breaking down food, parasites, worms, all the things that you find in the creatures of today, only a smidge bigger. All right, this is muscle, and this is in my shop, and there's a bone right there leading to a little piece of tendon, which is right here, leading to the muscle. Now, anytime you have muscle and tendon, you're going to have an abrupt transition where they come together, and I don't know if that's the case at the Great Pyramids or any of those pyramids, but you could very well have this muscle sticking up this way coming up to a tendon. And there's a lot to know. Oh, boy. All right, I know this got to be running very, very long. This is a bone right here attached to a tendon, which this is the tendon part, right? This is the same thing. It's just you can't see the bone up here. It's over here. So the bone attaches to a tendon, which is this. There's a brown piece, very little blood, attached to the muscle, which is here, a lot of blood. All kinds of blood pouring out into this. That is how muscles contract and respond. And this is some more about muscles. This is what muscles look like in mud fossils. This is actually sarcomeres. This cavity of blood right here is, I believe, what happened over there in Turkey. If you look at the Turkish collapse and you look at the side walls of the canyon that it made and that huge Turkey collapse over there, you'll see this exact same structure. And then at the very bottom, I believe there's a layer like this, which eroded down the hill, and then everything collapsed one day because it just couldn't withstand their weight anymore. And that was because of this red blood running down. There's going to be pockets of blood in between the sarcomeres, just as you see there. And I believe that's exactly what happened over there in Turkey. And I did a video showing that. Nobody ever responded, but I'm going to tell you, if you go look and look at the video showing the collapse, and then as the side walls, you're going to see exact same structure because they're sarcomeres. And underneath is going to, I could believe, I said, go down and look and see if you can see this. This is going to be called hematite. It's a sandy, muddy, red, bloody slurpy. And that ran down the hill. I'm almost 100% sure of what I'm saying. Now this is that striated muscle. It's coated with a fabric called fascia. Then you get down to striated muscle. Then you get to the sarcomeres, which I just showed you. And then you get down to here where you have the black and white and the stripes between them. Those are the blocks. When they erode, only the red stuff erodes out. All the white stuff makes the connective tissue stays. And when they talked about our best hope for seeing anything on Mars is artificial intelligence, well, let me show you something that is on Mars. Remember these sarcomeres. All right, you remember those sarcomeres I just showed you? These are those sarcomeres. These are the little blocks straight down. There's no reason for them to be blocked like that unless they are what they say they are. And these are the little connective tissues that go here. Now, this is a shot right down in here that is actually this exploded. Well, what is this? By the way, this is on Mars. And this is the Mars crab, they called it. This is from 2014, from Curiosity. This is a long time ago. And I contacted them. I said, this is an artery. These are the blood vessels that feed these sarcomeres. You see it? They're feeding these muscles. And this right here is the vein. Veins don't, as you saw before, the black ones, they just sort of run back. They slurp up all of the expended blood. But this is what the one that sends the blood out. The black ones just sort of run back, so they don't have all those little legs. But the blood vessels, they're everywhere. Now this is the sarcomeres. This red runoff here, all of this debris, that is just nothing more than red blood. That's why it's the red planet. Everything on here is dead. It was alive once. It almost got hit by, or I guess it did get hit by Venus, I'm sorry. Or I think it was Venus. Now, I thought I had a shot showing the impact zone, but I don't have it here. It's bigger. The impact zone is actually a very, very good impact zone. You can see it quite clearly. Now, so I've shown you the sarcomeres. I've shown you where they're the actual anatomical model, anatomical. These are the Mars blueberries, which are interstitium balls, but they're on Mars. These are the interstitium balls that go to those little straps and so forth. Now, they've all eroded away. And all you have left is the balls up there. Now, this is the Mars Morse code. This is a different situation. This is skin. I don't know how big this is, but I think it's pretty big. You see these stretched out ones? That's a tendon ball stretched out, because that's what they're supposed to do, stretch out and come back. This is their normal configuration, is sort of just this way. But this way there, they can go this way, that way, any way they want. This is stretched out, so the skin is squished together here, and pulled apart here. Now, if it's pulled apart and abraded long enough, these straps will abrade. The balls are tough. The balls won't abrade. That's why you see those Mars blueberries, they're just laying around, because the straps have abraded. And if you look close enough here, you're going to see this is nothing more than basically sandblasted. If you know what sandblasting does, that is it. And that's why, you know, they have winds, they have all that stuff, but they don't have much moisture. That's why you're not seeing any erosion of moisture up there. Oh, what else? Let me start thinking here. Mars blueberries, Mars Morse code, Mars crab. And then they say things like this. Look at this. Millions of years in one picture. No, it's not. This gigantic creature fell over dead. This took like millions of seconds maybe. But it didn't take millions of years. All of this is membranes. This is connective tissue. This is connective tissue. This starts to where you have connective tissue with the muscles. This is pretty red muscle-ish stuff. This piece right here, I believe, is more tendonish, which is the one I showed you. And this piece right here. Why is it missing here and over here? I say maybe the bone was over here and the muscle started this way at that abrupt transition. And what abrupt transition, Roger? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because if I can find it, I will show it to you. It is this abrupt transition right there. So what happened over here? Well, the bone eroded. Bones didn't do well in this salty water flood. Tendons, however, did extremely well. As you can see, that's what they use for the building materials. Then you get into the fleshy stuff, and that's the garbage that I showed you. And this right up here is where you have all your red blood. And that's the red blood coming out of the Mars crab. That is an artery right there. That's an artery. That's an artery too. See the red blood coming out? I think there's one right here too. Can't really see that one that well, but this was saturated, filled up with blood. And the other side of this rock, this whole layer all the way around, is that thick of blood to service this muscle. This, I believe, right there, is the piece that we saw say in a million years. I believe that's what we were looking at on my shop one, which is a tad smaller than this. Creatures were just beyond anyone's imagination. And if you were to bring this up, you get assaulted. Because trust me, I've been assaulted for 12 years now. And I don't care. I don't care anymore. This here, they call these flat irons. I'm going to tell you right now, you see how they run all the way down there? Well, these are basically like dragon scales, only this is the a serpent of some sort, and these are literally the bones. And they would have come up to the crest up at the top, right down the middle. And you can see it. Myron was looking at this. He's a mainstream geologist. I don't want to assault anybody, but he's saying this came from volcanoes. Now that's the kind of problem I have with mainstream, because I said to him, Myron, that's not right. Let's talk about it. No, you're too far off. We can't talk. I said, why? Let's talk about what's covering these things. I know what this is, bentonite clays, and snakes and reptiles are so flexible. And I believe that's why these are made the way they're made. They're not like a real bony. They're a deforming type of material, which is what reptiles and serpents have in their very, very flexible, snaky bodies. And this is huge. This is gigantic. He's standing there. He's only about this tall. These things are just absolutely huge. These are bushes up in here. Okay, I think I'm getting pretty close to running out of steam here, but I believe this is what whoops. Yeah, I think I overloaded my computer a little too much. I believe these are the blocks that made up the pyramid. And then they did some other pieces they cut and put them on the outside to cover up these spots, which would be the blocks. But this is nothing but muscle fiber. All right, you see the different colors? That's because they're in different transition phases of using up the oxygen. So there is a lot to think about. Whoops. Like I say, I think I'm about done. But anyway, there is so much more to this, because this is the top of the pyramid. You see that? That's vein blood. This is where the arteries would have come up the top. And these little dots here, these are holes in the blocks that actually transmitted a little bit of blood. I have a block here, hold on, that is basically the same block. Now, I said that I have a pyramid block here, and somebody said, where'd you get that pyramid block from? It's not a pyramid block, but it is very similar. You see the look to it? Now watch this. This is where the blood spot would be in this one. Now, you see the blood show up right away? I don't know if you can see that or not, but the blood is right here. Hold on. I think you should be able to see that. All right, now, what are you looking at? Blood would have serviced this whole thing. Now, the thing died flat this way. So all the blood ran down here. Otherwise, it would have serviced, it services everything when it was alive. But that would have been the spot, I believe. It might have been over here. It might have been two of them. I don't know. It's hard to say. But I believe that's the one right there that was the source of the nourishment for all of this. Now, this is fascia. You see this thing? This is another creature. It's a noto. This is coated with fascia. This bone, coated with fascia. My goose Caesar, my buddy, Caesar Augustus, even his feathers are fascia. 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 All right, I'm going to show you this in a microscope. I know this is running long, but if you're interested, you're interested. If not, go do something else. Now, this is also fascia, but this is a lung. Lungs are a whole different issue than the fascia in the rest of your body. Lungs are like big rubber bags. Big rubber bags. All day long. Or you're dead. So you better be doing that. And now this one died in the flood again. See, flat, flat, flat. Everything is flat in my world of mud fossils. Same thing with Caesar here. It's flat on that side. But, you know, they're pretty flat. They're not 100% totally flat. Some of them are. Some of them are just flat as a pancake. Well, here's another lung right here. You see this? This is the pleura. That's like a rubber bag, and it's thick. It's quite thick, as I will demonstrate right this moment. That is another lung, smaller. It was in a different condition. It was in an area where there was more mud or something. Something was different. Now, let me put a little water on there. Water always does a nice job of bringing out the colors and so forth. Because this right here, this part here is literally the interior of the lung. This thickness right here is this pleura. And it's eroded partially away. Same thing, flat, flat, flat. Same situation. This little tab here, now that I got it wet, you won't be able to see it. But that's the condition of these things. Some of them eroded a little bit, some of them didn't erode at all, some of them eroded down to virtually nothing. There's no way you can tell what it is. But there's no way, I understand these things quite well now. So I would like to engage with somebody to discuss this. Because especially at the top of the pyramid, as I showed you, my block has the same sort of condition here as the top of the pyramid. And again, we're going to be looking at this fascia because it's all the same material you're going to find. It's called feldspar. Feldspar is, I think I've talked about this, again, I get lost at these things. I do not script anything. Unless you haven't figured that out yet. But this is what we got. This is what we got, and we need to look into it. Because different things preserve in different ways in different areas of the earth, and if they're next to different body parts. This is one of these tendon balls. Again, we'll take a look at it in a microscope. We'll put a little water on it. But this is what these are. They call them concretions. They're little balls, and there was a stalk sticking out of there. It held it. This was pulled on a muscle. All All right, we're going to take a look at all this stuff. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up right here, but I'm going to show you what feldspar is. And feldspar is this stuff right here. And all of these mud fossils have feldspar on them, and I will show it to you. It makes up 60% of the Earth's crust. Feldspar does. All right, it's always aluminum technosilicate minerals. Exactly what I talked to you with other cations. That's all these different other types of things stuck into it. It makes up 60% of Earth's crust and 41% of Earth's continental crust by weight. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but we'll accept that. I got to finish this up pretty quick now. This is what happens sometimes. They turn completely into silicon dioxide. Sometimes the coating stays on and they change into basalts and all kinds of things. And sometimes blood literally comes out of the pores that were in the alveoli. These are the alveoli holes. That's the alveoli. Now this is the fascia, and it's very, very dense. Now I am going to take the microscope and go through each one of these, and I'm going to go up here up here. I have to turn the lights off, and all I'm going to do is go to each one of them kind of quick because I'm running out of time here. All right, here's the foot. This is the no-toe. You see that? Nothing but fascia. Here is the fascia that is on that one. It looks just like the pyramid blocks. That's from one side. That's from the other side. This is from the other side. And that's from the other side. It's nothing but fascia. This is from one of the lungs. Nothing but fascia. This is from that big heavy-duty lung. That one there is real dense, dense, dense. You see how thick and heavy-duty that is? Those are all fascia. This is Caesar. This is even my goose. Look at this. This is where his feathers are. Same thing. It's all made out of collagen materials. You see that? It's not exactly identical, but it's damn close. These are his feathers. So my point is that that's it. We need to start investigating what's in front of our faces and stop denying what's reality, even though it is very, very difficult for the average person to take in. These are all the things I just showed you. Now even this bone, same thing. This is fascia too. Look up there. It's the same thing. I should turn the lights off for you to see this. Alright, that's what it is. Same stuff. Alright, end of story. Thank you. I love you all. Please share this and don't be afraid to speak. Don't be afraid. We have the evidence. It's time to just not be scared to speak about it. Alright, I love you. Thank you. Bye.